Okay, hey guys, first of all, the information that you are about to see is not from just some nobody off the street. It's from a good friend of mine, Brad Croto. He's worked in politics since 2012. He has a good knowledge of what's going on, and he is going to explain to you the possible outcomes of the election situation. So, like, he's worked with the Democratic Party, he's worked with the Republican Party, worked a lot with the Libertarian Party, and even with the Green Party. So he's not going to be one-sided about the thing. He's just going to explain the outcomes. All right. And the other thing I want to say before we get started with that is we did start a charity jar promotion, I guess, with the YouTube channel. This doesn't apply if I post this video anywhere else. It doesn't apply there, just on my YouTube. Every like on my previous video goes toward $1 in the charity jar for the next video. So we've got $2 here. I put in, I guess I should have put it in on video, but $2 here for the last video because it has 2 likes, you know, 2 likes, wow. But so every like this video gets will be $1 in the next jar. Well, in the next video. You get what I mean. All right, enjoy the video. What is happening right
now? So there's multiple things that can actually come out of this. So one of the outcomes is that Biden wins with 270 of the electors by taking PA, Nevada, and Arizona, and Trump only wins Georgia and North Carolina, which leaves Trump with 248, which means Trump is going to be hard to ever catch up in that lead, you know. But also we have to wait till December 12th to December 15th when the electors do vote if Trump doesn't secede, you know, and give Biden the victory.
So it's like we're not even gonna know right away who won.
Yeah, if Trump doesn't, you know, leave and say that Biden won.
Yeah, if he
or
doesn't
the
concede.
Opposite, which is outcome 2. Outcome 2 is where Trump wins PA, Georgia, and North Carolina, and Biden gets Nevada and Arizona. Biden still wins by 270 is what it would come out to be, but that doesn't mean the Electoral College will vote 270. One person could stray in the Electoral College and change the whole outcome, which is outcome 3, which Biden would lose 1 electoral vote, putting a tie, where there'll be an entire tie in the Electoral College. And what that tie will cause is the third process in the electoral system that the founders created, which is considered a contingent election. So the contingent election would cause the House of Representatives and the Senate to pick the president and the vice president.
Okay. So it doesn't necessarily go off of what the votes say then.
Your vote does matter because your vote elects your representative, it elects your local officials, it elects your senators, but it also secures the vote for your presidential candidate you want. So if, for example, Biden wins Pennsylvania, then he would get those electorates, hopefully. That doesn't mean the electorates have to stick to that, but it depends on the state. Some states try to force their electors to vote that way, and some states don't have any force whatsoever on that. So it depends on the state of how the electors work, but the electors were put in by the founders of the Constitution to protect states' rights. So the small states like Delaware would always have a say in the election, no matter how many people they have. So if, say, we brought on a new state, Puerto Rico, if Puerto Rico become a new state, then Puerto Rico would at least have 1 vote, unless they got a higher population there. So what happens if they had like a mass disease and Puerto Rico lost all their people and then they had 10 people left? They'd still get a vote. So the Electoral College is a very important system for the presidency. It is only used for the presidency, so that way there's no way of vote cheating. There's no way of vote cheating, you know, destroying the system. So that's what the founders figured, because back in the time when slaves were an issue within voting, which is when the Electoral College was founded, the South would import slaves to basically change the numbers so that way they would get more representatives. So how the North fixed this is they made slaves one third of a person or 2/3 of a person. I forget the exact number.
Which is awful.
Yeah, it's extremely awful. But in the time, the North was figuring, how do we stop the South from cheating with slavery? Because we're not going to import slaves. Why the hell would we do that? You know, we don't want to be encouraged by them to be slave owners ourselves.
Yeah.
So how do we write a constitution that will eventually protect the slaves in the long run, but also, and make them voters, but also how do we discourage them from bringing in more slaves to cheat the political system so they can make it like theirs and abuse people and cheat the system? So sadly that amendment was in there at the time, but eventually that amendment was erased when they introduced, I believe it was the 20th Amendment, but I need to go back and look at it just to make sure. I don't want to give false information here. But yeah, so
that was outcome number 3, right?
yes, that's outcome number 3, is that we have the House and the Senate.
I got this fly just
The House and the Senate will,
bugging me.
will pick each one, but so when the Senate goes to pick the vice president, if they don't decide on anybody and it's an even race, then that means Nancy Pelosi will become the interim president for a little while until they decide on a vice president.
Okay. Nancy Pelosi as president. That's never thought I'd see that, to be honest.
Well, it's a possibility. First woman president, you know.
I mean, that'll be a weird way to see it happen.
That'd be interesting, huh?
Yeah.
But that's unlikely to happen because it depends on who controls the Senate after this election. I don't know. It looks pretty even right now, so I'm not sure. I think it's 48-48 right now. So I don't know who's going to control it. Maybe it's even. And
is it possible to have a tie for the Senate?
yes.
And what happens if we have a tie for the Senate?
Then Nancy Pelosi becomes president for a little while until they finalize who's going to be. They all agree on a vice president and a president. So who elects the president, now you're probably going to ask, is the House of Representatives. How do they do this? No, they don't vote with all of the House members, surprisingly. You would think that in first hand, but that's not how it works. Every state would get one vote, but all the representatives from every state would pick one person to vote for them. So, say if you're from California, obviously you'd want a Democrat to vote for you, right?
Yeah.
So, cool, you got a Democrat vote. Now, say you're from Texas, you probably would want a Republican vote. I don't know where Texas lies in this, but I'm assuming Republic.
Yeah, probably Republican.
You know, Republican. So, they would have one Republican vote. So, you break it up in that way, you know, and it comes out to different numbers.
Yeah, 50 states, 50 votes.
Yep.
Okay.
So, which is fair, I believe, because everybody has a vote. You know, each state has their own vote.
Oh, does Washington, D.C. get a vote?
No, they don't because they are not a state.
But they do get electoral college votes.
Yes, they get 3 electoral college votes, which is surprising, and I don't know why that's even in existence, honestly. But that's another story for another day to talk about. But since we're past that electoral system with D.C., they won't be getting any votes because they're not a state here. So that'll eliminate D.C. as a power player in deciding what the whole country would want for president and vice president. And it'll allow our representatives to kind of battle it out and figure out who's going to be. So I guess everything's going to be on our representatives. This is how it goes. Everybody's going to have their eyes on them and wanting them in or out in 2 years. Because every 2 years we elect our representatives. Where Senate, it's every 4 years, and it's terms that are not the same all the time. They're staggered. So it comes out to like every 2 years is a voting cycle then.
Alright.
So in the end, I'm not sure who will win, because it really depends on who's elected to the House, because when the new House comes in, those are the ones that will be electing the president and the vice president. And if, like I said, if they can't figure out who, then the new House Speaker will be the president. I don't know if it'll be Nancy Pelosi or not. I'm assuming it will be. So,
one thing I haven't heard touched on: voter fraud. Does it actually exist?
Yes. If you go look at a Heritage Foundation website, you will find a lot of ways voter fraud has been done.
The Heritage Foundation.
Heritage Foundation, yes. You'll find a lot of ways it was done. I don't know if it's at a mass scale or not. I can't prove that in any way, shape, or form right now. There's not enough evidence for me to say that. But you can go look up, at a Heritage Foundation, all the voter fraud that has been done, just so that way you can at least get informed about how voter fraud would work, or does work in the past. Yeah, that would probably be a good resource for that. I wouldn't come outright and say that, you know,
like,
one or the other is cheating or anything like that, because I don't want to cause confusion.
Yeah, we don't know for sure, but okay, so if they are cheating, can recounting the votes catch them? Will we be able to catch them?
Yes, because by 2020 election here, actually by the primaries of 2020, where the primaries is where Republicans would be voted in to be the Republican candidate, Libertarians would be voted in for a Libertarian candidate, Democrats would be voted in for a Democratic candidate, Green Party, so on and so on. There's so many parties out there, but I've worked for every party basically, besides maybe I don't know, the Socialist Party or the or what's the other one that I was gonna say? There's a new party that came out that's like all around healthcare, which is interesting actually. I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but there's so many parties out there I haven't worked for because they're so small, but they all come together. Actually, Libertarian Party kind of leads it, where they all try to get in to have to not pay the $250,000 or $200,000, depending on what it is, for petitioning costs just to get on the ballots. So that's a major thing that really needs talked about in this country, is that we're blocking other parties from being in politics.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. We know how to look into voter fraud, and hopefully if voter fraud has happened in this election, it can be caught, whether it's on either side.
Yeah, and it will be caught, because in 2020 there is a new law enacted for every state from the National Commission on Elections, where new voting systems had to be put in place to where all the data on the computers that we put our papers through when we vote have to have a paper trail. So if they don't have a paper trail, then we'd have to re-vote or whatever the scenario is. There's whatever, it gets corrected. So yeah, so there's a paper trail and everything now, which it wasn't before, I guess.
Okay. Did we go over all your outcomes of the election, or?
Yeah, pretty much those are all the outcomes. I mean, we can go through state by state, but I don't know if that's going to help at this rate. You know, it's either one or the other is going to win. And it depends really at most if one or the other gives up during the process, which it doesn't seem like either of them will. And that's why I
can't see Trump stopping, and Biden's party's pushing pretty hard, so yeah, it's gonna get messy, I would think. Yeah. All right. Guess that's it.